From a Chinese village abandoned and engulfed by nature, to a town that fell into a burning hole from hell, here are 10 of the creepiest places right out of the apocalypse. Number 10. Engulfed by nature. There's a really creepy abandoned ghost town in China called HALCYON, and it looks exactly like what the rest of the world would look like around 10 years after the apocalypse. This lovely ghost town is sitting innocently on the top of the cliffs overlooking the sea and the horizon, and all of its buildings have been overrun with greenery. This was once a fishing village busting with life before the residents packed up and just moved away to the city, when all their commerce dried up. There used to be about 3,000 people here, but now there are only 5. The houses have been overtaken by vines, mosquitoes, and plenty of birds have settled down here and made their nests. A moss blanket covers almost every inch of the buildings. It's been totally decimated by nature, though that's definitely not a bad thing. Today, the city is a tourist attraction, with the only way to get there by taking a boat, then a taxi out to the village, which drops you off at a cemetery, and then you have to walk through the overgrown jungle to explore this empty place. It feels as if this place always belonged to nature from the very beginning. Number 9. ORDOS Ghost City. ORDOS Kangbashi is another bizarre ghost town in China. This one is a little different though. It hasn't been reclaimed by nature. Instead, it kind of looks like what would happen in an apocalypse if everyone just ceased to exist. Like Avengers Endgame, with everyone ending. It's a brand new city with extravagant plazas, stadiums, brand new housing units, and so much more. And yet, nobody lives there. The city has been labeled a failure utopia because it was built, but then nobody moved in. The city may have been a plot by local officials to boost the GDP artificially. This place is massive, with thousands of homes unlived in and paved streets with no cars on them. There are shopping malls filled with stores and no shoppers, parks with empty swings swinging with the breeze, and nobody walking their dog. And it's altogether a little depressing. Maybe some people will move in here eventually, but for now, it's an empty metropolis. Number 8. Miami Marine Stadium. The abandoned Miami Marine Stadium was built on Virginia Key as the first stadium in the country designed specifically for powerboat racing. It was completed at a cost of around $2 million and opened in 1963 and saw significant use up until the 70s. Then when the 80s started, the stadium saw a steep decline in sporting events. There were also newer venues in the area, stealing a lot of their business. The last major race was in 1987. And by the 1990s, the place had been shut down. Then in 1992, Hurricane Andrew hit Florida and caused so much damage that the stadium was condemned. The repairs were too much, and so this place was just left in apocalyptic ruin, looking like what the rest of Florida would look like one day if it ever gets hit by a hurricane large enough to destroy the entire city. The stadium is covered in graffiti. It's dangerous to go inside of, and nature is slowly creeping in along the edges. There have been plans to restore the stadium and use it again, but so far, it's still a sad old ruin on the waterfront. If you do decide to go check it out, you can sit in one of the stadium seats and enjoy a great view of Miami. Number 7. HALCYON Hall. The abandoned Bennett School for Girls looks like something straight out of an apocalyptic horror film. It's one of the creepiest places anywhere in the state of New York, with its facade slowly sagging to one side, as if the building had a stroke. It looks like a gothic murder mansion and a haunted castle combined, despite the fact that it started life as a luxury hotel for the elite members of society. After it fell out of use, it became a woman's school, though that too fell on hard times. Once kids started being taught in the same classroom, boy or girl, there wasn't much need for girls' schools. So, the school was shut down and abandoned. It has remained an ugly and dilapidated structure in Millbrook ever since. The only people who go here now are urban explorers and photographers who want to check out the creepy rooms. The main building of the school is called HALCYON Hall, and it honestly looks like somewhere the cannibals would live or mutants hide out after the apocalypse. It was designed in 1890 to be the most luxurious retreat in New York, but all that luxury has since been claimed by Mother Nature, offering a more natural type of luxury and a quiet beauty if you're into that. There are vines crawling up the walls. The turrets are falling apart, and it looks like a bomb went off inside, shattering much of the wood floor and bringing parts of the ceiling down. Would you like to check out a place like this? Have you been before? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 6. ORADOUR-SUR-GLANE. ORADOUR-SUR-GLANE is a literal apocalyptic city. It was destroyed by German SS troops in 1944 during the brutal fighting of World War II. During the battle, or rather, during the massacre, 642 civilians were mercilessly killed. The entire village was actually blown apart by the Nazis. Then, when the war was finally over, the village was preserved as a grim reminder of the atrocities of war. Nobody lives here now, but the town is still a startling reminder of what war can do. As for the massacre that happened here, it was shocking even by Nazi standards. Almost all the victims were women and children, most of which were herded into a local church, then locked inside, while the Nazis threw hand grenades into it, and then set it on fire. At the same time, men with machine guns locked the male villagers in a barn and shot their legs, leaving them crippled, while they doused them in gas and set them on fire. There's no denying this place is haunted. With such a dark and gruesome history, explorers are bound to hear the cries of children and feel the presence of tortured souls. Number 5. Mystery underground tunnels. Apparently, there are mysterious tunnels that travel all the way from Scotland to Turkey, like a secret apocalyptic subway system. It's not clear who built these tunnels or what purpose they served, but some say they are 12,000 years old. This is shocking because the oldest monumental structure in the world is at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, only 11,000 years old. These tunnels haven't been explored or even talked about by mainstream scientists. Dr. Heinrich Kusch explains in his book written on this very subject that the tunnels have been found beneath all kinds of Neolithic settlements throughout Europe, but nobody knows who did it or why, with some experts guessing that the underground network of tunnels could have been ancient highways used by prehistoric people to avoid the above-ground predators. Even more shocking is a theory that says the tunnels were dug by a race of people that came before humans, but were ultimately lost by some kind of cataclysmic event that destroyed whatever buildings they had created above ground. These ancient tunnels may be all that is left of them. There have been similar ancient tunnels discovered on other continents too, even throughout the Americas. The big question is, why were these passages constructed in the first place, and how were they constructed? While there are a number of legends about them, researchers have yet to discover any solid answers. Number 4. Red Hook Grain Terminal. The Red Hook Grain Terminal has been abandoned for at least 50 years. The concrete is being eaten by black mold. The silos are depressing and look like they might fall down at any minute. And the whole place looks like a spooky scene straight from the end of days. The terminal was built at the turn of the century in the early 1900s in the industrial waterfront of Brooklyn. It had 54 silos when it was built and was specially designed to hoist huge shipments of grain from ships and then drop them in for processing. Unfortunately for everyone involved in the project, the terminal became obsolete almost immediately after it was built. The grain train collapsed. Nobody wanted to unload in New York anyway because the price had gone through the roof, and it was way cheaper to do it in places like Baltimore or Philadelphia. So, the terminal was shut down. The jobs dried up, and everybody left. The area is now riddled with vacant warehouses and docks that are slowly crumbling into the canal, looking like some depressing, failed Soviet city. Number 3. Pripyat Town. Speaking of failed Soviet cities, Pripyat Town is definitely the most apocalyptic place anywhere on Earth. It's been 35 years since the nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl caused by reactor number 4, which blew contaminated particles throughout Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and as far as Sweden. The nearby town of Pripyat was forced to evacuate the same day as the explosion in 1986, and people haven't returned to live here since. It's not safe. This has created the ideal apocalyptic playground, since this is the only city in the world evacuated in just a handful of hours due to a nuclear disaster. The apartments here are empty. Almost every piece of glass in the town has been smashed. The trees are literally growing through the walls and bursting through the ceilings. And the whole place reeks of sadness and human error. But what's really cool about Pripyat Town is that it shows just how quickly nature will rebound after the apocalypse. Even though this place is heavily radiated, wildlife is thriving today. Animals like bears, wolves, wild horses, and even bison have moved into the ruined city since there are no humans to hunt them and kill them. Even if all of our nuclear reactors blow up tomorrow, At least we know that nature will make a comeback. Number 2. Tawarga. Tawarga is a ruined town in Libya that looks like the end of the world. There were once 30,000 people living here before they were abruptly driven out of their homes, never to return. The story behind how the town became an empty ruin is pretty horrifying. It started back in 2011 when the dictator, Muammar Gaddafi, used it as his base for laying siege to the city of Misrata. Well, the siege failed. Misrata defeated Gaddafi, and in revenge, they marched on the city of Tawarga and drove out every single person living there. It was a harsh act of revenge and considered at the time to be a crime against humanity. What makes things even worse is that the people who lived in this town are considered to be the descendants of slaves, so it's not like they had an easy time before being kicked out of their houses. Today, Tawarga is still a ghoulish ghost town. The houses are silent. Nobody lives here except for stray cats and dogs, and the buildings have all been burned and ransacked. The place was also heavily bombed. You can see the scars from the shells in the streets. The people who were kicked out of this place have now spread across Libya. And number 1. Centralia. Centralia, a small town in Pennsylvania, was once filled with shops, happy residents, and a prosperous mining business. Mind you, this was about a century ago. The local mines produced coal, which paid for the lifestyle of the 1,200 people who lived there. It was a tight-knit community before a mine fire started 50 years ago, and everyone was forced to evacuate. To this day, the fire has yet to stop. The community was devastated, and the residents were evicted as the town slowly began to sink into a blazing fire, happening right underneath the street. The fire started in 1962 because, according to History.com, an old mine had been turned into a garbage dump, and the city wanted to clean up the garbage by lighting it all on fire. This sparked a much bigger fire beneath the town itself, spreading through the mine tunnels. Carbon monoxide levels became unsafe. There was no possible way for anyone to put out the fire, and it still burns to this very day. In fact, the ground beneath the city reaches temperatures of over 900 degrees Fahrenheit. There is still smoke pouring out of the sinkholes, and the old basements where people used to live are currently filled with poisonous gas. Thanks for watching. Which of these places interests you the most? Do you want to explore any of them? What's your favorite apocalyptic place on the planet right now? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe and come back soon for another awesome video. See you next time.